I feel successful when I see Rachel succeed, when I see my kids succeed and what God has called them. And so
Yeah.
part of me as a father and a husband is trying to understand their personality, their temperament, their wiring. They're all different. And then what can I do to help facilitate what God is calling them, how God wired them, the passions they had where they can succeed? And
Mhm.
so I try to adjust to that. For instance, with Rachel, my wife, incredibly gifted. Her voice in my life, uh, her carefrontation. We don't use confrontation, we carefrontate. Her carefrontation has shaped me, developed me. I believe marriage is one of the principal ways that God works sanctification in our life. And but we're very, very different, very different.
Mhm.
And, of course, that's friction at the beginning of a relationship,
Right.
my favorite definition of normal is, the family you grew up in. And when two people with two different definitions of normal come together, there's going to be friction. In fact, my wife, we had been married 20 years, and she sent out this tweet, and she said, "Happy anniversary to Brent. 20 years of marriage, the best 17 years of my life." And I started to get some texts from
That is
friends.
funny.
Yeah. I started to get some text messages from friends, and they're like, "Man, your wife, she's so funny. She's so witty." And I started laughing because I didn't even know, she had posted anything. And of course, that's how I found out. And she says, "What are you laughing at?" I says, "They think you're joking. They think this is a joke." No, we had some friction
Yeah.
until I learned to appreciate our differences
Yeah.
and then to use my strengths to help see her thrive.
Huh.
And man, that when I had that
Wow.
realization, it's the same thing in leadership in a local church. The team members that I have that I serve with here or Urshan, anywhere else, is part of my role and responsibility is to see them thrive in their calling. It's not just about my calling, what
Mm.
God has for me. It's an interdependent relationship.
Yeah.
And so when I began to see that, man, we really truly became a team then,
That is
respecting each other,
tremendous.
assisting one another. She helps me in so many ways that she is competent at, she is good at. And then there are other areas that she moves aside and I take the lead because of my strengths and it works together. And I also feel that to my children is
Mhm.
for me to understand them and how can I come alongside them and help and prepare.
Which I would imagine, and you alluded to this just a moment ago, but it translates to your teams that you lead as well, your church team, your college team, you know, all of the various places that you lead. I mean, you're leading on a high level in 4 different major organizations. Um, you have to leverage the strengths of those people around you, right? You have to lean into
Um,
those. You have to communicate. You have to care for, how did you say that? Carefrontate?
Confrontation. Yeah. Yeah. Confrontation.
Tell me more about how you lean into the strengths of those around you. I hear you with your spouse and your kids, but also
Yeah.
with your team members.
Well, of course, I'm sharing things that I've learned. I definitely don't have it all down. In fact, anybody on the teams, including my family, would tell you I have a long way to go. But one of the things I realized with teams is sometimes we have rigid job descriptions that we're trying to fit people into that,
Hmm.
right? And every time we bring on new team members, one of the things we have to take time is assess who we're bringing in. What's their gifts? What their abilities? There might be some areas where they're better
That's
than
good.
somebody who has that responsibility on the team right now. Instead of being, very hardcore on what this job title or role is, we might need to make some adjustments. And
Or
so
I would assume even hiring just a warm body, you're
uh-huh.
not wanting to do that. You need to find somebody that even sometimes just fits the need that you have on your campus or your whatever.
And chemistry is important. If you don't enjoy who you're working with, it's going to be miserable. And
So
if they're
true.
miserable, you're going to be miserable, and the organization's going to be miserable. I would tell if you are not content, happy, uh, like where you're at, you need to find some place where you're at. Life is too short for you
Mm-hmm.
to be miserable. But even, for instance, at the church, I have an executive pastor, Greg Wilhelm, an amazing guy, and also executive assistant Jessica Graham. Well, when they come in, uh, Greg's gifts and abilities were different than somebody who was serving before. So for me to just say, "Hey, you need to do what he did," so part of it is all of us adjusting. How can we be the strongest team now with the personnel on the field? It would be similar to a team, an athletic team, switching out a player, and you take out one star and put on another star. Well, can have different gifts. You don't just necessarily run the same plays. You got to
That's
find out
great.
what's
Great
the
point.
best thing to do with this team. And so that means we're always a learning organization.
Yeah.
Uh, who needs to be having these roles and responsibilities. Um, at Now, I live in Aurora, pastor in Aurora, at the Urshan University UGST. Executive vice president there is Jenny Russell, which she's an amazing leader. And so part of those conversations in those teams is learning one another.
Mm-hmm.
So she has to learn me, I have to learn her, your team members, because when we are leading and processing, we have to know how each other thinks. And so part of that is a lot of communication, not just
Mm-hmm.
making decisions, but processing them. This is why we're leaning in this direction. This is the steps that took us to get here. And the more we can learn about one another and understand one another, the more we can lead effectively as a team,
Yeah.
if we know where everybody's strengths are and their abilities and their passions.
Is there any particular method of finding someone's strengths that you do? Is there a actual assessment that you do, or do you just what kind of lens do you put on to be able to see people's strengths?
Everything. To me, that this is, and maybe that's part of the clinical background, is I think it's a great thing to take all kind of assessments
Mm-hmm.
because obviously they don't lock us into something, but they're great conversations. So
Yeah.
if somebody's taking the DISC, Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, whatever, I'm open to talking about it because it's many times those become just diving boards
Mm-hmm.
to say, okay, this is really where it has me, and this is where it doesn't have me. And then to hear their feedback, because as we work together, you're getting a mirror put up in front of your face as well, and you're getting great feedback in the discussions. So typically, uh, as time goes on, something we'll take different assessments, we'll discuss it, we'll talk about it, and I find that becomes really great conversation starters as well. Not only getting to know them, but whatever the tool is, it can help you to get to know somebody better.